Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's edition of Harmonize to Energize, which is on a Thursday because our guest couldn't make Friday. Anyway, we are here and I'm delighted to share today's hosting with, to my left or to your right, Lisa Gritton, and I think Katz in tow. Malashka in tow, and Jasper. Lisa's from San Diego. If you want to say anything about yourself, Lisa, go right ahead.
I'm honored to be with you, Terry, today. And hello, welcome to everyone. I have been practicing beautiful art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU for going on 30 years, and it has been my passion and enjoyment, and I'm still on this learning path. And I'm happy to be here to interview our mystery instructor. Have you announced her name yet?
No, not yet. Okay. So everybody, welcome indeed. And this is a first for me to actually share the hosting. So, and and for those of you that are completely brand new to the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU, the art of JIN SHIN JYUTSU is the art of balancing energy as it moves through pathways via what we call safety energy locks and what acupuncturists call points. So energy moves in pathways left and right, up and down through our bodies, and it's regulated by safety energy locks, 26 of them left and right of the spine, 3 in the arms. And when we place our hands, back of our hands, fingers or thumbs on these safety energy locks, it regulates the movement and frequency of what we call life force energy or prana, dependent on what culture you grew up in. And this energy, generally speaking, will move congruently in proportion to our lifestyle, how we think, what we say, how we act. And JIN SHIN JYUTSU is one of those modalities that we can turn to when our lifestyle has got a little out of whack, a little out of harmony. So, in summary, it's an art of harmonizing life energy. So, without further ado, Lisa, over to you. I want you to begin your bit.
So I thought we would warm up with just a little bit of self-help for relaxation today. If we could just give ourselves a hug. It's holding the under the arms, the 26, and just drop our shoulders and exhale. This is just allowing harmony to the life force. The safety energy lock 26 is total and complete fulfillment. This just helps. It really just helps everything. It helps to ground us and relax us. And again, just remember the breathing, just to exhale. Terry, do you have anything to say about this particular self-help posture?
Generally speaking, the hug helps you expand your lungs and open up this whole bust line area. And by and large, whenever you practice this, generally speaking, that is, your energy is freed up to circulate much more easily because the breath is the facilitator of the energy. That's it.
And would we like to add maybe a finger or a thumb to our today's relaxation self-help, or should we get on with the interview, Terry?
You want to add a thumb?
I was thinking the thumb and the web of the thumb, the
the 18.
eminence, we call the 18. It just really helps to pull the energy, to relax the mind, pull the energy out of the head. If you feel like you have a busy day, your mind is jumping, or if you're laying in bed at night with your mind going, this is the thumb. It really helps thousands of functions in the body, but it helps just to relax everything. So if you have 2 free hands, hang on to your thumb, during the session. This looks like this. And for me, I like to just hold the whole area, the handle, I call it. But anyway, and then if you're questioning, should I hold right or left? I would suggest try both. One is going to feel a little more comfortable. Go with that one. So.
Sounds good.
Any questions about that simple self-help of holding the thumb, giving yourself a hug? You can raise hands. You can type in the chat as we go. I'll be monitoring that. And I see that our instructor has arrived.
Oh.
Would you like to introduce her?
Oh,
Terry?
okay.
Or shall I?
Hold on, I'll find her. Where is she? Yes, when I find her, today we will be interviewing a JIN SHIN JYUTSU instructor from the JSJ SMB group, and I can't find her.
There she is, and let's see, can I pin her?
No.
I mean, on my screen, Terry, I'm right next to Lisa. I don't know if that's going to be the same on your screen or not. I mean, I could maybe put a 1 in front of my name as well, if that might help.
Oh, there you are. No, you hadn't. Well, that's weird.
Okay.
You showed up and then you disappeared. Oh, there you are. It is our good friend, also from San Diego, Susie Plettner. Welcome, Susie.
Thank you so much. Thank you so
Good to
much
see
for
you.
having me. It's really such a pleasure to be here. I see some old faces, some new faces. It's really, really wonderful to be here. Thank you. Hi, Kim.
Yeah, we've Lisa and I will shortly be organizing for Susie. She's doing an online class, October 25th. And we thought it would be a really fun idea if we bring her on and have her share some of her journey to becoming a JIN SHIN JYUTSU practitioner and then an instructor. And then we'll have an overview of the class, and then finally we'll give you an opportunity near the end of the presentation to ask her questions. But the format at this point will be, we will kind of interview Susie. We're going to put her on the spot. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to ask her some questions, and I think, Lisa, it's your starter for 10. Here you go.
Okay. Well, welcome, Susie. It's nice to see you here.
Nice to see you as always.
Yeah, I would just like to ask you a little bit about your JIN SHIN JYUTSU journey. And I would like to know what was it that brought you to JIN SHIN JYUTSU?
Oh, that's such a great question. I mean, really, where to begin? I would say everything in my life kind of brought me to JIN SHIN JYUTSU. As a young child, I was very curious about spirituality and religion. But I was also kind of brought up with extremes. Like my stepmother who raised me was an atheist and really didn't have a very positive view about life in general. And then on my father's side, they were fundamentalist Christians. And so I kind of saw the extremes of like both sides. But I always really believed that there was something there, even though like my immediate family were atheist. So I asked permission to be able to go to church when I was younger. There was a church that was in walking distance to my home, and it was a Lutheran church. And I went to Bible school, and I would go to church on Sundays with my sisters, and I did that up until about middle school. And then I realized it wasn't quite satisfying my spiritual quest or journey. And then I dabbled a little bit with being an atheist when I was in high school. And I thought, yeah, maybe they're right. There's nothing really there. And it's just this, we're just floating around this big, beautiful planet for a short period of time, and then it's just done. And then I remember in the moment, actually, I was walking home from high school, and there's this beautiful, beautiful weeping willow tree in my neighborhood. And I felt, I actually used to mow the lawn of the people that worked there and do the yard work. So I used to babysit their children. So I spent a fair amount of time near this tree. And I was walking home, and suddenly I just felt very drawn to the tree. I went to the tree. I sat down, leaned up against the trunk of the tree. And I said, it was nature, really. I was like, there's something so beautiful here. And nature is so sacred and divine. And I felt that I just felt very drawn towards that natural connection. And at that point, I was like, there is something here, and I may not understand it, but I know that I can really find it through the sacred relationship with nature. And then so at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not an atheist. I don't think I'm a Christian. But I'm a spiritual person. And I believe that connection can really be found in our relationship with nature. And so when I went to college, that's when I was like introduced to Buddhism and Taoism and Eastern philosophy. And I felt very, very drawn to that. And I also felt very drawn to, an earth-based kind of indigenous spiritual practices, where we look at air, fire, water, earth, and wood. And so I got involved in a group in college, where we would come together, and we would study and practice the seasons. Essentially, we would study the rotation of the sun and the moon and its relationship to the natural elements. And I felt very, very finally at home. I finally kind of found what I was looking for spiritually. And then that just continued to really progress. When I graduated from college, I went to Guatemala. I knew that I wanted to practice medicine. I knew I was not interested in kind of Western allopathic medicine. I knew that I wanted to use my hands. I didn't know about acupuncture at that point. It was like 1994, and I was in the Midwest, and I didn't really know about traditional Chinese medicine. So I moved to Guatemala with just essentially a prayer. I was like, please help me find what I'm looking for. And I was introduced to JIN SHIN JYUTSU through a self-help class taught by Guyan Gold in Panajachel, Guatemala. And, really it was I saw a flyer, and it had Mary's quote, the truth is that within each of us lies the power to cast all misery aside, to know complete peace and oneness, to be that beautiful creation of perfect harmony, to truly know and help myself, come study JIN SHIN JYUTSU, physiophilosophy. And I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? And I can't wait to go. So then when I entered that class, and I was like, oh, this is it. I mean, it was hands-on. There was some complexity to it with pulse reading and, a little bit of tongue reading. I mean, she wouldn't tell me much, but I actually asked if I could look through the textbooks. We were working with the self-help books, and she said yes. And then I started to study the textbooks for that brief, like 2-day class. And I even snuck out with the books and took some photocopies of some of the flows and pages, and then returned it back to her. And then from there I went and I I worked at La Casa de Salud, which is a house of health in Corquín, Honduras. And I started to use the self-help JIN SHIN JYUTSU that I had learned. And I'd also taken Reiki, and I'd studied some polarity as well. And so that was, was kind of, I don't even remember the question anymore, Lisa.
Just what brought you to JIN SHIN JYUTSU? That's a great story.
Yeah, that's what that was kind of, yeah, it was definitely a spiritual quest that I had felt within me from a very young age. I was definitely searching as a child, and finally found JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and it really aligned with my spiritual practice of nature and the sacred elements, and how we're just a part of that cosmos. You know, there's a microcosm and a macrocosm, and it's the divinity of nature that really guides us.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so that was, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, sounds like you were following nature's way. So
Yeah.
when and where was your first 5-day basic with JIN SHIN JYUTSU?
Okay, yeah, that's another great question. So I was first introduced, you know, in Guatemala in 1996, and I continued to live in Guatemala for about another year. I worked at La Casa de Salud. Which, let me see. So anyway, fast forward. So I finally get home. I moved back to the Twin Cities. I went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota. McAllister, yay. Kim went to McAllister as well. I was just in Portland last year. That's right, thumbs up, and realized that we went to the same class. So I went back to St. Paul, Minneapolis, and it was my intention to move out to California, and I assumed I could find more places to study natural medicine, acupressure and whatnot. And I got to St. Paul, and I was like, I want to study JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And I was 26. I really didn't have much money. There wasn't anything local. It was a class where I would have to rent a car, stay in a hotel, and then pay on top of the class. And I just didn't have the money for it. So, so fast forward, I eventually, about 10 months later, I make my way out to California. And I'm like, I'm sure that there's some JIN SHIN JYUTSU classes out here that's probably in driving distance, because I just thought of the Bay Area in California as more of a mecca for natural medicine. So I got the Touch of Healing, and at the end of the Touch of Healing, I found the number to call. I called up, and they were like, oh yeah, there's actually going to be a class in your area, like 3 weeks with Lynn Pfluger. And I was like, oh, finally, you know, I can drive there and I do have a car, and I think I can afford this. So that was, I think, October of 1998. I took my class with Lynn Pfluger, and of course, she was an amazing instructor. And I was blown away by the physiophilosophy and the totality of the study of JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and so deeply excited and humbled, and just I knew that I was like, yes, what I had found when I was 26, and that desire to learn and study this sacred healing art really just was affirmed during that first 5-day class. So I was also taking acupressure. I also studied at the Acupressure Institute in Berkeley, California. And there, you know, there was, Jin Shin Do was actually Ione Teagarden, who used to be a student of Mary Burmeister and then kind of changed things a little bit, but that was the school that she started with Michael Reed Gach. And so I was doing, you know, training at the Acupressure Institute while I was also studying through JIN SHIN JYUTSU Inc.
Yeah, interesting. I think you covered the second question.
Oh, what was the second question?
Or third question, who was your first instructor? Lynn Pfluger. And just briefly, Lisa, do you want to add something about Lynn? You probably were taught by Lynn at some point?
I did work with Lynn. Lynn was a very good teacher, instructor, and had a lot of wonderful stories about Mary. And she showed me some really interesting hands-on, I want to say techniques, or just awarenesses that have been really profound through the years for me. And I think it was with Lynn that I finally started, I don't remember what year I was into, that I started to really start hearing the texture of the pulses, which was really also very profound. So
Yeah,
that is a treat.
Lynn taught a great pulse class, and at least I know when you're talking about tricks, the trick that Lynn taught me, she's like, if you go in after the session and you're going to hear the pulses and they're just not quite coming in, go in, cross your hands and hold the 18s.
That's it. That's exactly it. It makes a huge
It makes
difference.
a huge difference. So I would do that, and then you could really hear the pulses more clearly. That's a trick, definitely a trick that I learned.
That's interesting. I hadn't heard that one. So did
Yeah,
you say you read the pulses and then you went to the 18s to clarify them?
If you still feel this and that happening, the things
Oh,
aren't
yeah.
quite
Okay.
congealed, you cross the hands, hold the 18s, listen again, and you'll be amazed. It's
Yeah,
really
it's incredible.
powerful.
So yeah, a lot of times I just end the session by crossing my hands and holding the 18s. You know, I mean, the lung function energy at the
Holding the 18s on the person, yes?
yes.
Yes. Not holding yours. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah, but you have the lung function energy coming in there that is of course the breath of the body. It's we also know it's related to the spleen in the stomach at the depth level, the thumb. And so I think of that as you're really harmonizing the physical breath of the being. You're bringing them the element of first depth, and then of course the breath essence that's received from the lung function energy. I mean, at least that's when I was like, well, I wonder why this works. I mean, that's what I kind of made up in my head, but it's very powerful. I mean, going into those 18s, very, very powerful. It's also, 18 breaks down to a 9. It's a completion of every ending is a seed to a new beginning. So it's a completion of a cycle. So I think it helps to kind of a completion for the energetic patterns that have been set from the treatment as well.
yeah.
So Susie, in terms of that, I'm sorry, go ahead, Terry.
Well, all I was going to say was, Lynn Pfluger, to me, she's no longer on the planet, folks, but I was fortunate to be at one of her last classes. And I remember how she actually opened the textbooks and covered the whole philosophy and understanding of JIN SHIN in about 15 minutes. And it was absolutely, I mean, she deserved a standing ovation. I would say Lynn Pfluger was humbly brilliant.
Oh, she was. She really was. Yeah. She really carried the physio philosophy. There was no pretense, no comparing, competing with Lynn. She really embodied the physio philosophy of JIN SHIN JYUTSU. She was a great instructor. Yeah, and she'd come from a family of physicians, right? And they initially kind of poo-pooed what she was doing, and she initially kind of poo-pooed it as well because she was coming from like a Western kind of allopathic model. And I remember she had a knee injury that brought her to JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and the person held her tens, and she was like, but it's the knee. And the person was like, well, the body's connected, and then after that session, like her knee didn't hurt anymore. So she was like, well, wait a minute. And that was kind of Lynn's first awakening to the power of JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And then she followed that, became a brilliant teacher, a wonderful practitioner.
Dry sense of humor as well.
Yeah.
I
felt it a few times. Lisa, you
wanted I also just wanted to add about Lynn. She had a very relaxed, flowing, slow way of talking, and you never felt rushed. When you take a 5-day class, it's 2 textbooks to cover in 5 days. It's a lot of information. And there was just always such a free, relaxed, easy feeling with her. Like she didn't have to share every single thing that she knew every class. And it really is very calming and soothing, especially to a newer student. Wouldn't you say, Susie?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I could probably use some of Lynn's medicine, in terms of like slowing things down as an instructor as well. Yeah, you'd walk in and you wouldn't feel overwhelmed. You'd just be like, okay, it's going to happen. There's such a beautiful flow and ease to her presence. and her
And that leads me to my next question, Susie. How did you feel after that first class in terms of the information that was covered, the hands-on portion, etc.?
Well, I think like many of us, I felt extremely overwhelmed. I was like, what is going on here? And there was a part of me that also was just kind of, I was frustrated. And I knew I interpreted that frustration as a motivation and desire to understand and to learn. But I was also extremely excited. I was like, I can study JIN SHIN JYUTSU for the rest of my life and never be bored, ever. So I knew that it was just a lifelong study, and I could always learn, I could always grow. And so that was also really exciting for me. I loved just the practicality of it. I love the innate intelligence of laying the hands on the body. And that there wasn't effort, there's no massaging or digging in or manipulating of the tissue. There just seemed to be an effortless quality and aspect to it. And I knew it was then I was just like so blown away about what Lynn had just conveyed to us in such a short period of time. I was like, I want to be an instructor. I mean, that's when so that's when I was just like, oh my gosh, this is really what I want to do with my life. And I didn't know if I would ever get there. I knew that it would take a lot of studying, a lot of effort. And of course I wanted children. I didn't, but I'm so grateful, like here I am. Yeah.
Yeah. How long, I mean, we know, generally speaking, I don't know if it's changed, you can tell us, Susie, but generally speaking, folks, when you've studied 3 5-day, or they call them basic seminars now, which are 3 5-day classes, you can go out and practice. So just curious, when you started out practicing, how long before you practiced professionally?
Well, to be honest with you, I might get in trouble, but I was doing it after my first class. I had been studying, I'd studied polarity, I just felt like I was so ready for this. And I'd studied other hands-on arts that just didn't quite grab me the way that JIN SHIN JYUTSU did. And I was also in acupressure school, like studying different massage techniques and also JIN SHIN Go techniques. And so I was already working on people professionally as a healer. And so I just started to bring in JIN SHIN JYUTSU flows. So yeah, but I'm not supposed to tell you that I did that, but I did. Yeah.
Gone are the days when I could, if I wanted to, police you.
Yeah, exactly.
Gone are the days.
And of course, I mean, initially I was just working on friends and family, like anybody that was willing to lay on the table. I was working on them and getting feedback and just doing my best to listen to the energy. Initially when I was listening to the pulses, I would just pretend like I knew what I was doing. I would kind of get their symptoms beforehand and then go through the book and be like, okay, well, maybe this flow and this flow and that flow. And then I would listen to the pulses, and I had really had no idea what I was listening to, but I would just listen to them and practice. And then I would kind of go into a little bit of the recipe that I had already, determined based on their symptoms and what I was researching with the different flows. So yeah, fake it until you make it. I mean, just practice, practice, practice. That's the key to JIN SHIN JYUTSU. And of course, I'm always reminded of, what Mary said. The only reason why JIN SHIN JYUTSU doesn't work is if you don't do it. So I knew that having the hands on the body, and maybe it wasn't the most efficient flow pattern to choose because I was a beginning student, but I knew that there was going to be benefit. I knew that the innate intelligence of the body would be able to receive the medicine and the energy and the compassion and the love and use it in its most, to help their perfection to express more divinely. I mean, I knew that the intelligence of the body would do the majority of the work, and all I had to do was kind of jumpstart the energy to move. So that's why that's why I just felt so comfortable practicing really right off the bat, because I trusted the body. Even though I didn't necessarily trust myself. I
Ah.
did trust the body, and I knew that I was told that our flows can do no harm. I trusted that information as well. And so yeah, I trusted Juro, I trusted Mary, and I trusted the body.
Well, that leads us quite neatly to the next question, Lisa.
So, what was it, Susie, that made you feel confident as a Jin Shin Jyutsu practitioner?
I know, I kind of yeah, that's a great lead in to what I
It
just
is.
said. Yeah, I mean, I thought about my like my initial experience in when I was in that self-help class taught by Guyan Gold in Guatemala. I had abdominal bloat and distension, and which is pretty common when you're moving to a different place and just different ecosystem. It takes your body some time to get adjusted. And she was just like, oh yeah, just cross your hands and hold your high ones. And of course I initially was just like, what is that going to do? I mean, come on. And she's like, in about 20 minutes, your pain should be gone. And I was like, okay. So I did what she said, and after about 10 minutes, there was less pain. There was a break in the pain. It wasn't constant. And then after 20 minutes, she was right. The pain was gone. And I was like, of course, my mind was trying to make sense of it, and it couldn't make sense of it because I didn't understand what had happened. So I was like, well, it probably would have been gone anyway in 20 minutes. But of course, in the back of my head, I was like, how'd she know 20 minutes? Like, what was it about the 20-minute mark? And then later on in that class, there was a student there that also had a headache. And she was like, okay, yeah, she said the 24s, we need to clear the gallbladder channel. It kind of moves throughout the head, and just hold that for like, in about 40 minutes, probably the headache will be gone. And yeah, sure enough, I did hold the 24s, 40 minutes, the headache was gone. And so those like first initial amazing experiences with Jin Shin Jyutsu, even though I was just like, God, I really don't know what I'm doing here, but I really just, it works. My mind can't comprehend it right now, but my heart does, and my soul does. And I trust that. And I'm just going to practice. I'm going to practice. I'm going to be open. I'm going to use my mind. I'm going to use my intuition. I'm going to use my heart. And eventually, you just continue to practice, and then your senses and your awareness improves in terms of being able to read the energy, the pulses, where you're feeling if the safety energy locks are harmonizing or if they're blocked. And then also, I just remembered to keep it simple. All we're doing in Jin Shin Jyutsu is we're exhaling down the front and we're inhaling up the back, clearing all ascending channels down the front and all descending channels up the back. And it's really that simple. Just exhale and inhale, and exhale and inhale. So if I also felt like, oh my gosh, this person is really complicated, what they have going on, I just simplify it. Do a 1 flow, do a 2 flow, do a 3 flow. That you're getting all exhaling, all descending in the 3 flow. You're clearing the breath and where the mediator is, and the 3 is related to the triangle, all harmonious relationships. I mean, you can't go wrong. And even though my mind was like wanting to make it go wrong, I knew intuitively, and I knew within my heart that I couldn't go wrong with Jin Shin Jyutsu, because this is such a beautiful art that's been passed down and given to us. And so I just leaned into the trust of the ancient wisdom.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So tell us about your practice, the kinds of clientele that you might work with. And I know you got a cat called Sunny, because you told me. And so can you give us a little insight into the clientele and what you do? And
Well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I built my practice originally in the Bay Area, in Oakland and San Francisco. I worked in San Francisco and Oakland. I always had an office in both places across the bridge. And of course, that class, or that clientele rather, they have discretionary income. And so I saw a lot of folks with autoimmune diseases, chronic fatigue syndrome, cancer, a lot of digestive complaints, insomnia, hormone imbalance. I would treat acute like colds and flus and things like that to kind of help give the immune system a boost. I would always be doing first aid with my family, calling me from afar, like, oh, such and such burned themselves, or wow, I ate McDonald's on the road and I normally don't eat that, and now I have a really bad, stomach ache. What can I do? Like all those, I was doing a lot of acute things constantly, just with friends and neighbors and my family. And then when I moved to San Diego, I worked at the Center for Integrative Medicine in the hospital, and then I got to see a different kind of a broader range of clientele of people, and I saw a lot of like complex regional pain syndrome, a lot of folks that had had surgeries that didn't go so well, and they were having side effects from those surgeries, like what's the one where it's the bypass, where the stomach bypass surgery, where they make the stomach into a small tube. Like
I know what you mean.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people that were having a lot of digestive complaints post surgery from that, and then just obviously a lot of pain, arthritis, joint pain, bladder. I don't know, a lot of things with the back. So trying to think of anything else. But then when I had children, I worked a little bit more with fevers and teething and gum stuff and development and pertussis. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, I think there's an element, I've certainly found it to be true, and I've heard others say, we often attract, not always, but we often attract clients who've got similar projects to ourselves as well. Did you find that sometimes?
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, I'm doing a lot of 13 flows lately. Oh, maybe I 13 flow. Or, really a lot of your clients are always a reflection to you.
Yeah.
Somebody would be, that oftentimes, and I think we know this, and as in session, a lot of people are also just venting and expressing mental and emotional stress. And maybe especially if they're clients you're working with for a while, they're telling you about their particular maybe relationships and whatnot. And I would always see a lot of correlation of like, oh yeah, that's my lesson too. And oh yeah, I'm working on that. And oh yeah, I need to be a little bit more forgiving and not so judgmental. And so, absolutely, there's always an opportunity for reflection.
Right.
That that you're, it's a give and take.
Mirroring.
Reciprocity, it's definitely a reciprocity. I learn a lot. I learn a lot from my clients. Yeah.
And Susie, I'd like to ask, in the clientele, JIN SHIN Jasper would like to know if you treat animals as well.
Oh, that's so cute. Well, I've had cats like most of my life, and the thing about animals is they'll just, when they're done, when they've had their fill, they just get up and walk away. You don't have to worry about really over treating them, because their own innate intelligence will not let you. But yeah, I do a lot of simple, like first, a lot of quickies with animals, main central quickie, maybe just the top of the head and the coccyx area. A lot of kind of one flows on all the limbs, just kind of get the limbs going. And, then the 11 and the 25 and 11 and like 15 area on the animals, just keep it really, really simple. My cat Sunny right now, he's 17, and
wow,
he's getting a little elderly. And so I do a lot of just also palming for us, it would be like the kind of the umbilicus region, the belly and the back. I think that's like the dantian. I can't quite remember, but I just do a lot of kind of palming of the front and the back along the main central channel. Just kind of really just give them some energy and get that main central vertical flow moving. and just keep it really simple. Sometimes I do opposite pause. I'll get into a paw and then hold the opposite pause. That's really nice too. And sometimes maybe I'll just hold all the paws at the same time, depending on, the energy of the animal, how long I think that he or she will abide me, doing Jin Shin Jyutsu.
I find that the nice thing about working with children and animals is they let you know when they've had enough.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
And sometimes it doesn't take much.
Yeah.
But clearly, you're a very experienced practitioner. You've been practicing for many years. So, what made you decide to become, or made you want to become an instructor, Susie?
Well, I mean, again, I was so blown away, but the self-help class that I took, it just felt it aligned with everything that I cared about. It was an indigenous, oral, earth-based practice that really I felt like I'd already been studying it through my spiritual practice of studying nature and the sacred elements. And I loved that there was such a strong self-help component to Jin Shin Jyutsu that Mary brought to the art, because I believe that we are all really endowed with the ability to harmonize and to heal ourselves. It is a birthright, and Jin Shin Jyutsu, the self-help, I think, is forefront in our practice. And of course, it's also physiophilosophy, nature, effortless reality. I was very drawn to the term that Mary coined in her just brilliance, and the love and the compassion that's innate in the art. And I just and then when Lynn, I was just so blown away about how the story that Jin Shin Jyutsu weaves together of how spirit becomes matter, and the ways in which we have our hands and our feet as well, just to be that facilitator, that vital life force energy. That's a birthright. It just, I mean, who couldn't fall in love with that, And so I really was just wanting to follow my heart. I was, I mean, yeah, it was definitely after I took my first class with Lynn, I knew I wanted to be an instructor, but I kind of kept it close to the chest, because I didn't know if it would happen. And, life can be really busy. And again, I knew that I wanted to have children. And so, but yeah, I mean, it was after my first class when I was, I think I was 28 when I took my first 5-day class. I was 26 when I was introduced to it. So yeah, that's
So,
when
beyond mastering as much as you can at a time about Jin Shin Jyutsu, because as you said earlier, it's a journey. Is there anything that stands out in terms of when you became an instructor, any changes in your perspective that you want to share with us?
Yeah, well, when I knew that I was accepted into the instructor training program and I was on the path, I buckled down. I went into those 20 plus years of notes, and I studied more and more and more, and brought and really, and then I also created I wanted to organize the information in a way that I thought would be more digestible for myself and everyone. And so I created an organizational flow pattern that included all of the information that I think would be easy for folks to use and to reference. So yeah, I just went deeper into my studies.
That's great, and actually dovetails right into the next question, Lisa.
So, Susie, what can students expect from your class?
A lot of fun and a lot of fire. No, okay, I'm being silly, but maybe we could also ask Kim. She just took my class in Portland, but as I said earlier, I've organized the information in a unique way, and based on the principle that we heal from the innermost to the outermost, and our spirit being the innermost, our mental, our will, well, how do I want to say this? I based it on, again, we heal from the innermost to the outermost, and I created a concentric circle of the body moving from the innermost to the outermost. So first we have our spirit, and then from moving from the innermost to the outermost, we have our will, and then moving from the innermost to the outermost, we have our mental body, and then moving from the innermost to the outermost, we have our emotional body, and then again moving from the innermost to the outermost, we have our physical form. And so I created a flow pattern that, based on the premise that we heal from the innermost to the outermost, which is, of course, you know, something that Mary taught in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and also based on the notion that, you know, all disease state starts in the energetic plane and then denses down into the physical plane. And so I you know, worked with some of these basic natural therapeutic philosophies and built a very organized flow pattern of the information, which I think allows students to not feel so overwhelmed, and creates an opportunity for them to go back to their notes. And I also encourage students, like, this is how I organize the information, right? Like but maybe what I put in emotional, you might think is more mental, or maybe what I thought was spiritual, you think was more of a quality and a philosophy of the flow. Make it your own. You know, I really encourage students to make it their own. But I think that organizational flow pattern really allows for the information to be more digestible, and hopefully to have more kind of aha moments and fill in some of those missing gaps. I don't know, Kim, if you want to say anything about
Yeah,
Kim.
good idea, Kim. You've just recently been.
I would love to say a couple of really specific things. What Susie suggested in terms of organizing information, for me, this was my 4th 5-day, and it is a very different kind of organization where people get a sense ahead of time of how things will come together. So a number of people, there were 12 of us in the class, were making comments to each other that we were hearing information organized differently, so we were able to process it differently. So I agree completely with what Susie said. The 3 observations I wanted to make were that first, Susie was super supportive about participant fear. And even though in other classes, people said, you'll be fine, just absorb what you can, I think Susie attends to people's fear more strongly than many of the other instructors. And by framing things from a pedagogical point in terms of learning outcomes, we could see, you know, what she thought she had just gone over and how, and that was different. The other 3 things that I would say really quickly are that Terry's talked a lot about Paul Foster Case's Tarot, and I've tried 4 different times to start reading it and gotten stuck each time, and I finally tried again last week. And the kinds of things that Susie had been talking about in terms of how spirit becomes matter were finally coming together for me. And so I think if you are in one of her 5 days, those beginning pieces of information will be richer and more understandable as opposed to only mysterious. And I also think that given the new structure of mind, body, spirit, for people that were working sort of with old frames and new frames, where Susie having spent the time that you spent as an organizer, I think that gave you to us a much clearer sense of what and how to present in order. And finally, for those of you that don't know about Susie's poetry, she is the only person who presents, as she's done once with Terry, these really stunning prayers that relate to each flow. So if I had a chance to like turn around after we got done and go right back to another 5-day, I would have. Thank you a lot, Susie.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet, Kim. Thank you so much. Yeah, oh, that's right. I forgot to mention there. It's so beautiful too. Each, of course, the safety energy locks came into the universe with a spiritual meaning. And so there are these beautiful poem prayers embedded in each flow. And because I'm a poet, I felt inspired to write them out. And so each flow comes with a prayer poem as well.
Yeah, you know, folks, when I took a class with Susie, I found that poetry just threaded everything together for me. And it just is so refreshingly expansive to know that someone has looked at that level as well as the flows. So, you know, if that appeals to you, not to mention how well organized Susie's notes are, it might be a class you want to sign up to, even if you're experienced, because, you know, Lisa and I have done several classes, but honestly, I got to tell you, for my experience, Susie's probably one of the best out there.
Oh, wow, Terry, that I
You
wasn't
know, and the years
very
I
thing
was
to say.
working for Jin Shin, I've studied with pretty much all of the instructors, but and yeah, I mean, it's each instructor has their strength. Susie is one of the first ones that brought it all together for me in a very organized and creative way. So thank you, Susie. Lisa, you got something to say, yeah?
Yes, the way you have organized your visual presentation is really beautiful. It really helps assimilate the learning. And it is also very beautiful the way you put together your poetry. I first learned that from Wayne years ago. You know, it's basically a meditation on what you're practicing. If you're thinking of the safety, the meaning of the safety energy lock while you're holding it, and you put it into a prayer or a poem, and it's really beautiful. And the way that you express that is um, really extraordinary. But anybody can do this. All you have to do is know that
Anybody.
the meanings of the safety energy
I
lock. And
know,
I think
it's
it
so
makes the
beautiful.
practice so much more beautiful and meaningful, you know, just to be there with that. So anyway, Susie, you are an
Yeah,
amazing
I mean,
poet.
I really, what I was also hoping for the poetry is that, you know, if people feel inspired, they can also write their own poem, you know, because of course, I mean, there's fingers and vertebra. And so, you know, I was drawing on all sorts of different relationships. You know, sometimes I was using the depth relationship. Sometimes I was using the organ function relationship. You know, with the vertebra, sometimes I was like using main central relationship. Sometimes I was using the organ function associated. I mean, you can really be creative with the poems, you know. Everyone has their own poetic license, you know, if they feel inspired. Yeah.
So you're going to be teaching online October 20th to the 25th, Lisa and myself organizing for you. Can you give the audience just a brief sense of the difference between teaching online and live? Because you've taught a couple on live now, haven't you, at least?
Yeah, yeah, I've taught 2 live and then 1 online.
Yeah.
So, well, of course, you know, Jin Shin Jyutsu, it's a hands-on healing art that's passed down orally, and you know, there's certain things that can get lost in translation when we're not meeting, you know, physically, right? So I mean, nothing can be said for the importance of still coming together and gather, and then, you know, just to have the opportunity to actually practice, and all the body readings that also occur in a class. That's really nice. Now, having said that, the nice thing about the online learning is obviously there's a much broader reach. You know, the first online class that I taught last February, you know, gosh, I had people from England and Portugal and Canada and all around the States, and people coming in from Singapore. Like, that's a lot of fun. And the beautiful thing about it is, because we can't practice, you know, hands-on during the class, I'm doing a lot of self-help, so people can feel the flows within their own body. Also demonstrating how to do the flows. I have a mannequin, so there's definitely a lot of demonstration so people can have an understanding of actually how to do the flows on someone else as well. And I would say that the benefit, the great benefit of online is that you have access to the information for 3 months after the class is done. So that's, you know, when it's a live class, you know, you're writing so quickly and you can't get everything that's said. But with the online class, if you have the time, you actually can, because you have 3 months after the course is complete to have access to all the recordings and to go back and to study and learn again.
Nice. So I'm just going to share the screen for everyone to see where you can register if this forthcoming class interests you. So there it is. You go on to the JIN SHIN JYUTSU spiritmindbody.com website, and there it is, the live online basic seminar, October the 20th to the 25th, taught by Susie. All times are EST. There's all the dates. We start on a Friday evening.
Yeah, and it's only 2.5 hours that first day. And that's so we can get 35 hours so we can offer California acupuncture CEs and nursing CEs and national acupuncture CEs and national massage and therapeutic bodywork CEs. So we have to get 35 hours. So we have to add, you know, just 2.5 hours will be the first day.
Yeah, there's all the information on the CEs when you scroll down, and here is the outline of what you will be studying. And there you can get the textbooks, either printed, hard copy, or electronic. And there's the fees. I suppose it's gone beyond early bird now, yeah?
Yeah, there's no longer early bird is.
Oh, they're no longer. Oh, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
because
Okay.
we're 2 months into so.
Oh, I see that there was, but there isn't. I got you.
Yeah, we're
there's
too close to the
the
class. Yeah,
yeah.
for the early bird.
So yeah, go to, there it is, JIN SHIN JYUTSU spiritmindbody.com. So that's the whole word, JIN SHIN JYUTSU spiritmindbody.com, and then go to classes, and then you'll find that, and you can sign up there, and you'll get all the information. And Lisa and I are available. The information is there on us, and we're available to you if you have any questions to get you registered. All right, where'd you go, Lisa?
I'm sorry, I lost my internet there for a minute. Pardon me. So I
Ah.
kind of missed your answer. I'm glad you kept going. But did you cover briefly sort of the the differences between an online and an in-person class, Susie? Okay,
Yeah,
great.
I think so. I mean, unless people have other questions, you know, about that, you know, either I could answer, or you or Terry.
Well, I would just like to give my feedback as a seasoned student who's taken many classes. And just in the last couple of years have I taken online classes, but they're both wonderful. You know, the benefit of an online class is that you have this material for 90 days to study. You have those beautiful PowerPoint presentations to study. You can go to different parts and repeat them over and over again, and it's really lovely and much less overwhelming than just madly writing notes for 5 days. So that's really nice. For me, the in-person experience is different. It's in person. You get sessions in your body. You get more practice with the hands-on portion. There's a lot of knowledge to learn in JIN SHIN JYUTSU, and then the hands-on practice is obviously just important. So you get more of that in an in-person class. So I think really they both have their place, and they're both. I enjoy both experiences. How about you, Terry?
Yeah, I'll be honest, folks. I think I might have said this before. These days, I tend to prefer the online experience. After many years of doing the live classes, they're inspiring, and you're definitely going to get the embodiment. You're going to put your hands on people. But, you know, I've loved adapting at a distance and having a teddy bear. And, you know, you can work remotely. And Susie does a wonderful job. And as she said, how she teaches the self-help component. And she's got you got a doll or something, haven't you?
I have a big mannequin.
Yeah, big mannequin. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, actually, especially those that live in remote places, if you get hold of your own teddy bear and your mannequin, it's a really great way of learning where the safety energy locks are and some of the flows. And honestly, at times in the live classes, you don't always get that opportunity because it's compressed. There's a lot of information, as Lisa said, and 5 days is a short period of time, because the effect I found of being in that energy field was often, I was like, day 3, I was like, I was up with the fairies, and there was not much else I could absorb. That doesn't mean to say it's not worth doing, folks. It's just a process. Jin Shin really brings out an energetic framework, a field which you marinate in, and it has an effect on you. And it's also true online too. So that's my 6 penneth worth. Maybe more than 6 penneth worth. Okay, look at the time. We're dead on, and we got that 15 minutes. And this is the opportunity for anybody in the audience who's got any questions. Can you just raise your hand and then unmute yourself, unless you've written anything? I don't see any questions in the chat.
Actually, I wanted to make one quick announcement, and then Stephen was visiting earlier. He had to leave, and I think he's the organizer from the Bay Area, Cupertino. He wanted me to mention that there is an in-person class coming up as well, and it is October 29th to November 2nd in Cupertino, California, with Jed Schwartz. So we have an online with Susie coming up before that, and then that's one of the upcoming in-person classes. So
yeah, and I think Kelly's also having in person in, I think, North Carolina at the beginning of November.
okay.
Gosh.
Yeah, so get on that website, folks. Jin Shin Jyutsu SMB, and I think someone said JSJ SMB works, so you don't have to write out the whole thing. And all your classes are there, right, Susie?
Yes, yeah, all of our classes are there.
Yeah.
Someone
Okay,
is asking,
folks.
I'm sorry, can I read one of the questions, Terry? Do we have time?
Oh yeah, no, go right ahead.
Someone's asking, Susie, if you have a source for mannequins.
Oh gosh, I think I just hopped online and typed in mannequins. I don't quite remember where I bought it. But there are lots of places selling mannequins. And I think I got it for like $100 or something. So it really wasn't too terribly expensive. Full size, she's kind of my height, like, tall. So yeah.
Oh,
Or a teddy bear from Target. That's mine, actually.
Exactly.
and someone says that Goodwill sometimes carries mannequins.
Oh,
so
okay.
if you could possibly get a bargain.
That's true. You could definitely get a bargain at Goodwill, I would imagine.
Deborah.
Someone has a question, yeah.
Deborah.
Hi, Susie. This is
Hi.
Deborah from Arizona.
Hi, Deborah.
Hi. I just wanted to share with the audience that I took your replay class, and it was really, really great. It's a wealth of information. It was my first 5 days, so there were things that definitely went right over my head. But Susie gives a wealth of information. She gives a lot of notes. She has all her slides, and she is available after your class if you have questions. I know I contacted Susie, and we had a phone conference and went over a few things. And I found myself, Susie, just a couple of days ago going through some notes where I needed a little assistance. I'm like, oh, 2325, got it.
Oh, who loves the 2325 flow?
Yeah, I have a cyst on my finger, and so I had written that down. So I'm working with that, and I just wanted to express that I've not done an in-person. I do live in a pretty remote area, so I was fortunate to see the replay and took it. And I just want to share that with your listeners, that it was a fabulous class. I learned a lot, and some didn't retain, of course, in my head, because there's a lot. Susie does go through a lot of stuff, but I would recommend it. So thank you.
Was that the February class?
I believe it was. And as a matter of fact, I think you were the one, Terry, that was the tech person on her class.
Lisa was also.
Lisa and I were
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, with this online class in October, I've changed some things. I've added some slides. I've taken some things out. I took some feedback, and so it's there. There's going to be slightly different. I think it's going to be a better class, and once that's recorded, I'll I'll replace that as my replay because it's going to be a better class. But Deborah, it's so nice to put a beautiful face to the voice. So thank you so much for raising your hand and introducing yourself. I know we've talked on the phone a few times, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we've got a couple of raised hands. Kim again, and who else has raised their hand?
Just real quickly, it was Susie, if you could remind people about the first aid, that's a webinar that people can access that and that they're the 3 parts.
Oh, that's right. Well, I just did teach a first aid webinar in three different parts, 3 different webinars. And that's available to really anybody. You don't have to have a 5-day. Anybody can take the webinars. And so that would also be, if you're interested in how the beauty and power of our lovely hands to harmonize ourselves in acute situations. There's so much that we can do to help ourselves, to help our community, our friends, and our family. So those are, I would definitely recommend the webinars. And I've also have done a depths webinar, especially if you've taken one 5-day. In the basic class, I really, you can't go into great detail. I spend 2 hours on slides that during the 5-day class, I think I spend maybe 4 minutes on, right? And so the depths webinar is also another great in-depth exploration of the depths. Great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we still got, I extended it for an extra 15 minutes. We still got 10 minutes here. We can either take more questions if you got them, or I'm going to invite Susie or Lisa to share some self-help to round things, to thread it together. Has anyone got any last-minute questions? Anyone? No, I don't see anything. Do you, Lisa? No questions?
Well, I would just like to add to those webinars are just amazing. It doesn't matter how much experience you have. You don't have to have had a 5-day class. You can learn a lot in a short period of time, and you also have the 90-day replay, and they're very inexpensive. So that's a nice sampling of Jin Shin Jyutsu, and it was a beautiful series. Your first aid series and the depths. Have you done other webinars, Susie?
Kelly and I did a generation regeneration webinar. I did a webinar on reversing, increasing the depths, webinar on the depths, and then I think the three first aid.
And you can find those on the website as well, and purchase the replays.
Mm-hmm. And I saw in the chat that Kim said I am going to also be teaching in Santa Rosa in the end of January, beginning of March in 2024. So that's also an in-person 5-day class. And then I'm going to be in Kentucky in October, September of 2024. The dates haven't been set yet, but in the fall of 2024.
Someone would like to know how you teach pulse listening. I'm assuming that means with the online class.
Well, what we practice on ourselves, essentially, just really listening to the pulses on ourselves. And then, you can also just, when COVID hit and, there was this massive shift of not coming together, a lot of people in our community started, as Terry mentioned, we started to do long distance healing. And it was during that time where I started to read the pulses on a teddy bear. And I would just ask that, that the person that I was working on pulses would come through, the medium of the teddy bear. And it was amazing. I could hear their pulses. And so you can really even practice on, again, like a teddy bear, or you can, again, practice on yourself, reading the pulses here. And then we just talk about different ways and how we can describe that field of energy that you're hearing. And of course, the different relationships of the pulses in terms of texture and depths and organ function energies and bust line, waistline, and hip line, all those things that we would normally teach, in a 5-day in person, we still teach online, but we listen to the pulses on ourselves. And then I encourage you to, read pulses during the class of family members that you live with. And we can sometimes talk about, and then you just you just really want to keep it simple. Is there more stagnation on the left side or the right side? It's like, am I hearing a little bit more of bust line, waistline, or hip line pulses? And then for students that have been reading pulses longer, listening to pulses longer, we can, then talk a little bit more about textures and causations and different flow patterns related to what we're hearing in the pulses.
Tim wants to know what the flow for jet lag was. I guess that's Tim from Portland.
Tim forgot, and he's been desperately trying to find it.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there's a number of different things that you can do. I mean, what comes off the top of my head is really, you want to hold each finger for 20 minutes. And that's going to help set your body clock to wherever you are. So when I'm flying, and if I'm flying a long distance, I hold each finger for 20 minutes while I'm on the flight. And, and then when you get to where you land, your body clock is going to be much closer to the rhythm of where you're landing. Also, I really think of, the medial 22s right here, really kind of get that kidney channel open and harmonizing, so I'll just hold it. And sometimes I'll tap it a little bit and then just come in, nice little hold on the medial, like 22s, right where that kidney channel is coming up. I mean, spleen as well, spleen is earth. It's going to really, connect you to the earth and to the rhythms of the earth. And, the spleen is there's an aspect of the spleen that's related to every season, the warmest time of every season. So it's going to really help set the circadian rhythms of the body as well. Terry and Lisa, do you guys have anything else that comes off the top of your head?
Fingers, and that 22s, happy and content wherever I am, adapting to new environments, circadian rhythms, all of that.
Okay.
I always do 11:15, 11:25.
Oh yeah, that's great too. Absolutely. Get that exhale and inhale, connected to the time and space where your body is, to help make that adjustment.
Yeah.
Also, I guess like a main central would be really wonderful. I mean, isn't it lovely, all these little tools that we have available to us?
Probably, while you're sitting there, sitting on your 25s would be a good thing too.
Quietly
regenerating,
exactly.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything for ease and comfort. Well, we're coming up now to just a couple more minutes. Is there anything, Susie, you want to say just briefly to summarize, looking ahead for the class? Anything you want to say, Lisa? Sign up. Sign up.
I think that JIN SHIN JYUTSU is such a beautiful, I mean, I would say it's been one of my dearest and best friends my entire life. I was always looking for it. And when I found it, it became my dear and best friend. And the opportunity to grow in your awareness, I would, come and study with me, come and study with the other instructors. We all have our own little beautiful way of expressing our relationship to this wonderful art. And, just enjoy, be the fun.
And Susie, is it still the case that folks can do 2 online and 1 live to get their certificate?
Exactly. So, yeah, with JIN SHIN JYUTSU, to get the certificate, we want students to take 3 5-day basic trainings, and 2 of those can be online, and 1 needs to be in person. Or you could do 3 online, and then you need to do a special topic course where it's the art of the practitioner, where it's a lot of hands-on. So
Oh, that's a new
yeah, you could do it that
variation.
way as well. You could do 3 online, but then to get your certificate, you do have to do a art of the practitioner special topic course. So those are different ways.
Yeah, good to know. I hadn't heard of that. Lisa, you got anything to add?
I just want to thank you, Susie and Terry, and all the rest of you for showing up today. It's been a lot of fun, and it's been an honor and just a wonderful journey to help support your classes. Susie, I've been enjoying it. I know Terry has been too, and hopefully we will see some of you in October for the online class, and have a 5.5 days or 5+ days of fun with JIN SHIN JYUTSU.
Exactly. And it's, again, thank you so much, Terry and Lisa, for organizing this, give me an opportunity to, the interview's been fun. It's fun to kind of think about these things. They were wonderful questions. And of course, to all of you beautiful JIN SHIN JYUTSU physio philosophers, thank you so much for being here and for holding and anchoring this beautiful sacred healing art into planet Earth right now. We need as much harmony as we can have, and I think of all of you as just these really beautiful beings of light, harmonizing and bringing love and compassion and awareness into the planet right now. So thank you all so much for being here and for your interest in the beautiful journey of JIN SHIN JYUTSU.
Well, I totally agree, and I totally endorse that. Just going to stop the recording.